Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday evening. I'd like to welcome you to our second in a series of Facebook Live sessions. We have with us this evening Jamie Ray Turnbull, who is actually a board member of fightforwellness.com, which you'll hear a little bit more about later on in the session. Also with us is Lynn Knowles, the vice president of our Nope of Hillsborough chapter. She also served before as one of our president slots. So we thank both of you for joining us. And as I mentioned, this is the second in a series of Facebook Live presentations from our chapter. Last month, we did 20 minutes on 420, the facts, vaping and your children. And it was a very well-received session that talked about vaping, marijuana, how did 420 even come about to be in the cannabis world? And now today, we're going to segue right over to vaping because a lot of teens are not just vaping nicotine, they are vaping what is considered marijuana and different types of supplements of marijuana. Powerful stuff. You know, Jamie Ray, our viewers are wondering, okay, where's Daniel? Could you explain to our viewers why Daniel is
Yes.
not on the screen?
Yes, Beth, thank you for having me here tonight. And we do apologize that Daniel couldn't join us tonight. Unfortunately, Daniel was tested positive and is suffering with COVID-19. And he's incredibly at risk because of his condition following his vaping illness and lung transplant. So he's resting. And I'm here representing Fight for Wellness and happy to be here on his behalf.
Well, we appreciate it, and all of us have heard so much over the past year plus how much this is a respiratory disease. So we can only imagine how much he is suffering right now, and our prayers are with him. Please know that. How are you connected with Daniel? How do you know him?
Sure. So Daniel is one of my daughter who is 17, one of her best friends. And Daniel has been coming to our home since he was in sixth grade. He was always a leader with his group of friends, really great personality, always around, always doing the right thing. He was actually one that was constantly talking my daughter and her friends out of doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And was always very healthy, active, sociable, and for the most part, until summer of 2019, was really on a right path, and all that changed.
What year was he? What year in high school was he when he started vaping?
So this would have been the summer of his sophomore year. And there were many times that his friends were trying to encourage him because of the peer pressure was all around. We live in a very small community outside of Detroit, Michigan, Grosse Pointe. So there is a lot of access to vaping and underage drinking. And I always found it very interesting that Daniel was one that was always trying to be a leader and trying to tell his peers that it wasn't the right thing to do. And then he had an injury, an athletic injury, which sidelined him from running. And he lost a bit of motivation and the surroundings, especially the peer pressure and the fact that he wasn't able to do his sport. It came to him the summer of his sophomore year.
You know, we've heard this so much when we go into schools here in Hillsborough County that when people have an injury, whether it's from dance or sports or whatever, they end up with that mental health challenge, first of all, because they've lost their passion, their love, but also oftentimes the pills prescribed to them or turning to something like vaping or smoking weed to kind of make them feel better is just another addition to that trauma. So it's interesting. I did not know that about Daniel's story, even though I watched the documentary that he made with the company in Germany, I think it was, and his website. So that is very interesting. Were a lot of his peers vaping alongside him?
Most of the people surrounding Daniel and his peers were vaping at the time, and unfortunately are still vaping. I think that's probably the saddest thing. And my daughter herself has struggled even since Daniel's illness with vaping herself. She has since quit, thankfully, but it was not easy for her because it's an addiction. Daniel would say he was never addicted to vaping. He never owned a device of his own. The summer of his sophomore year, a friend left one in his vehicle, and that was the only time he ever had one in his possession. He never had one in his house. He usually would take a hit off of one at a party or when it was being passed around, but he never had an addiction and never wanted to be addicted. And at one point, my daughter and Daniel threw a couple of jewels in the lake and said, "We don't want to become addicted. We're going to throw it away." And that was kind of a turning point for them, realizing that this was a bigger problem than most kids and parents and teachers and coaches really knew it to be.
Wow. Was it just nicotine? And I don't mean to say just nicotine, but were they putting other substances in? Do you mind me asking that? Were they using marijuana in the vaping devices at times?
So he has tried marijuana vaping that summer, but the majority of the time this was Juul products or Soren products. And they were accessible, quite accessible to many. There's still a vape shop in our community that sells to underage children. I myself have gone there and called them out personally and said I've seen kids come and go that are able to walk in. I know they're still in high school. I know the kids, and I know they don't provide an ID. So it was very accessible. And Daniel's illness came very quickly. He was not a habitual vapor. He had friends that vaped for many years prior to his trying it summer of sophomore year, and there were some that had an addiction to it, and that wasn't Daniel's case. He was a sailor, a swimmer. He had goals of being in the Navy and being a Navy SEAL, and all that changed with his illness.
How quickly did that come on, the illness?
So Daniel was able to go for days, go without vaping, and the right before school started in September of junior year, the end of August was kind of everybody was just having a really good time, him and his friends, and they decided, they were going to really enjoy the rest of the summer. And he was at a few gatherings where quite a few people were passing around a vape, and he didn't like the way he was feeling. He knew he needed to get himself back and focused for his junior year. And he said he wasn't going to do it anymore Labor Day weekend. And he went to school the first day after Labor Day. That night he went to work and he wasn't feeling well. He came home, he thought he was just exhausted. The next day he was having a hard time breathing. He told his parents that he needed to see a doctor. They took him to the pediatrician. The pediatrician said, they thought there might be a respiratory something, sent him away. He knew that night he was feeling so horrible. He insisted on going to the ER, and he never left. He was admitted to the first of 3 hospitals on September 5th. So he only made it to the first day of junior year. That's the last time he went to school. He's been online ever since. And within days, he was unable to breathe, and on his own, he was put on ECMO very quickly, and then was transferred to several hospitals, one of which was the transplant unit at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit.
Wow. I mean, I remember him saying in his video, 75 days of his life, he feels like he lost. And this is a kid who wasn't addicted, who wasn't even owning his own device. This is mind blowing. I hope that parents and educators and caregivers that are watching see that you may think it's not a big deal that you see your kid vaping a little bit, or maybe a teen is watching this thinking, "Oh, it's better than cigarettes, it's better than smoking a joint." We've heard about popcorn lung, and we actually talk about popcorn lung and the development of just what happens within your lung when vaping takes place. So I thank you so much for coming and sharing this. Before we go to some questions and things, what challenges has he had? Because now he's a senior, he's getting ready to graduate. What has happened in the past year to create some obstacles that are beyond the norm for normal seniors?
Well, like I said, Daniel's last day of school was September 5th, 2019. So he had to finish his school online. He was isolated almost immediately once he was released from rehab after the third hospital he went to rehab. From the video, you see that he was down to 99 pounds. Daniel takes an incredible amount of anti-rejection medicine every day. Medically, he is challenged and also is faced with a short life expectancy. And nobody wants to ever hear that your lungs will only last a certain amount of time. And that is something that he faces every day, which causes a great deal of anxiety. He has horrible night terrors to this day because of the trauma that he went through. He has had to adjust his entire life around his physical well being. And then the pandemic hit. And so, right from coming out of his recovery and into what would have been a wonderful group of people around him, he had to go into further isolation because of his risk of getting COVID. And so before that happened, he was actually able to do a town hall at his high school. And he was actually able to go to his middle school and elementary school and speak personally right before the pandemic. He was able to go on TV and be on Good Morning America and tell his story. Um, but it has been, his whole life has changed dramatically. And he can't do the sports. He was a sailor. He can't go into the water. He can't dive. He can't swim. All of these things that we all take for granted and kids think every day it wouldn't happen to them. Daniel would tell you this can happen to you because it happened to him. He has a twin brother that struggled and is doing well now, but it's a bit of Russian roulette.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. Your organization, Fight for Wellness, and Daniel have been kind enough to say that in every single middle school and high school presentation that our chapter does in this new school year, as long as COVID allows us back on campuses, that video that you viewers saw a little bit ago is going to be shared with every one of those students. And I can tell you that this young man is going to change and save lives. So we thank you for that. Currently in our presentations, I just want to share with our viewers, because some of you have students that have seen the note presentation here in Hillsborough County. Here's a little bit of what they see from their peers, because they don't want to hear it from us. They want to hear it from somebody their age. And here's what they say. I apologize that it is not there because of all the different technology. So I'm going to stop the share and I will put it up on our Facebook feed tomorrow. Okay. In the meantime, Lynn, are there any questions from our viewers as we go to wrap up our 20 minutes this evening?
Yes, Beth. And thank you so much for being here, Jamie Ray, and sharing this just incredible story and our very best, our very, very best, Daniel. We do have a question from Valerie Kelly. She is asking what effective resources are available to help teens quit?
Jamie Ray, do you have an answer for that? Because I do locally, but I would welcome if you have anything there as you've gone nationally with this story of Daniel's.
Yes, and we have been working with Parents Against Vaping Electronic Cigarettes and other tobacco initiatives, and we can provide those details. But what Daniel's real message has been and is the prevention aspect. It's really hard to get kids to stop vaping because it's an addiction. And so our initiatives have really gone toward preventing it when in younger individuals, younger students, because once you get started, the challenge of stop quitting and the resources that are available, they have to be, you have to be, really supported by your parents and your network and your coaches. And sometimes kids have a real hard time talking to adults about this. So there are great resources through PAVE and other initiatives.
We'll put those up then on our Facebook feed later tonight, maybe, if I can get some of those acronyms and websites that you mentioned. Locally here in Hillsborough County, on our website, we have a list of resources under a tab called Resources. We made it that easy. So feel free to reach out to that page and you will see. But specifically for vaping, I would say turn to Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. And again, we'll put that acronym up in our Facebook feed after this session. And this session is being recorded, so it will be accessible to anyone who would like to see it or play it for a teen or someone in their life later. So Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance has a plethora of resources specifically devoted to vaping. Great question. Lynn?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions actually, Beth. I really was looking here. Laura Son, who we know very well, she's asking a specific question, and I hope this is not inappropriate for you to answer if there is an answer to it. She just wants to know if his doctor determined what substance and or product did the damage and why.
So that is a really good question. They were unable to determine exactly what caused the complete decimation of Daniel's lungs, but that's essentially what happened. I mean, Daniel's lungs were completely ruined by vaping. They did send their biopsies to labs of the lungs, but there was not one specific product that they were able to tie it to, unfortunately. And this came about last fall when EVALI and popcorn lung was all pretty new. The transplant team that worked with Daniel and also the team at Children's Hospital of Detroit, they were really trying very hard to determine what it was, but they could not pinpoint exactly what product in the vaping world led to that.
Great question. Thank you, Laura. And I have to mention just briefly, Laura is actually the one that shared the Detroit News clip with me to tell me about Daniel. So Laura, thank you so much for bringing Daniel's story and Jamie Ray into our life to save others. Lynn,
Right.
some more questions? And those of you that need to, I'm sorry, some people might need to drop off and that's okay, but if Jamie Ray and you have like 5 extra minutes, let's address some of these important questions.
Yeah, I'll just do a little combination here because I do want to say that many people here, Natasha, Mary Lou, are talking about their high school and middle school students that they know are vaping and that they know or know that there are kids in the bathrooms vaping at their schools, even during classroom. And I guess the combination question here is, are there any tips? We know that there's an amazing documentary and we're going to share that later. So, because that's another question, how can we watch the documentary and get this to our kids? So we'll share that, correct, Beth? But I think it's basically, are there any really good tips when you're working with your children and they're coming home and telling you that they're seeing this happening at school, even in classrooms?
I would love to answer that because I have had many young individuals knowing by nature of my relationship with Daniel, I have become a strong advocate against vaping nicotine. And I have been on the PSA for Michigan Health, the Department of Health and Human Services. And I will tell you the first and most important thing that an adult needs to do, if it's a teacher or a parent, is to be encouraging and open to listening. This isn't a time to lecture. This isn't a time to threaten. This is a time to be supportive because it is an addiction. Like any other substance, nicotine is an addiction, and there is a cry for help from these young individuals that don't understand how this is affecting their mental health and potentially their physical health.
Right. Thank you for answering that question. Beth, we do have, of course, more people requesting the documentary, but I just want to end with this last question. Pawan asks, are Hillsborough schools trying to monitor and put controls on this? Because to Pawan, it seems that the school authorities just don't care. Now, we work very closely with Hillsborough County Schools, and we know that they do care. What do we know as Hillsborough NOPE? what are they doing in the schools to try to lessen this happening in bathrooms, on campus, in the classrooms?
I will address that because I asked about that before, and I'm going to read exactly what they're saying. If a student is found vaping, it is just like a smoking. Civil citation is what they get. If there is something in their vaping device or e-cigarette that is marijuana or any other illegal substance, it will be treated just like a potential arrest for a felony. So there is going to be suspension if you're found with marijuana or illegal substance in your vaping device, any Hillsborough County school, and a possible arrest for a felony. So there are two different levels, vaping with nicotine and vaping with marijuana, and we will be stressing that in our new presentations. I will certainly share the documentary that that Daniel was a part of. Absolutely, we will share the link to that. We're going to share the link to the nonprofit that Jamie Ray is a board member of, that Daniel formed to help spread the awareness of vaping and its dangers. Could you just end us tonight, Jamie Ray, with a little bit more about what that nonprofit is doing and what Daniel's efforts are still while he's got the wherewithal to do it, except for COVID being in his life?
That's right. And I will tell you that Daniel has had some health obstacles along the way, in addition to COVID. So, what I want to point out to any youth or any parents that want to think that Daniel was very fortunate in getting the gift of life through new lungs. Daniel's life is forever changed. And physically, even though he was able to have that gift of life, he still battles with many health hurdles, medications, life changing. So, what Daniel's efforts have been toward is really getting out there a message of his story through many different networks. He has participated in podcasts and health summits. He was a participant in the PAVE Health Summit. He's going to be working with the Tobacco Initiative this week on another presentation. He is also going to be featured in two more documentaries, one that is being done by the New York Times and another that is being done by an organization out of Boston. So he continues to be an advocate for prevention of nicotine and vaping. And we have not been able to be very proactive about getting out there because of COVID and his health. But I will tell you, every time he has an opportunity to speak, he takes that opportunity and he shows up. He's been on TV shows. He's going to be featured in a book by Jamie Ducharme, who is with Time Magazine. And it just continues to get the word out to help these kids and prevent this from happening to someone else. And
Well,
Fight for Wellness is a wonderful vehicle for him to do that. Daniel created this nonprofit on his own. He created the website. He's worked very, very hard, responds to all the inquiries, and we're very proud of what he's done to help with this effort.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I remember first seeing the website for his nonprofit and immediately writing a check out of my personal checkbook saying, how can I not help? This is a mission that this young man is fighting. And I thank you so much for just bringing yourself here tonight, because as you said to me, as we had to scramble at the last minute when we heard that Daniel was just not able to do this because of COVID. And you said, you know what, Beth? He doesn't remember those 75 days he was in the hospital. I was there for every one of them. So I can speak to this young man's story quite well, and you did. So thank you so much. I encourage all of you to visit fightforwellness.com. Give what you can to help this young man continue his mission. Lynn, thank you for your amazing moderation of the questions. And Jamie Ray, thank you for being our new friend. Everyone will have this recorded. You bet. Thank you.
All
Link
right.
for the recording. Bye now. Everyone be well and be safe.
Have a good night.